Welcome back to Hey Kentucky. Now, you probably have not been following at home, but today was day 31 of the Kentucky legislative session. And what you probably do know is there has yet to be a pension bill, and there is no obvious agreement as to what's going to happen next. A new proposal is currently being speculated about that's different than all the rest of them we've heard. It would not include moving teachers and public employees to private 401ks, but create a so-called hybrid system. Now, it's very complicated, and honestly, it's not even worth going into because, hey, we've heard a lot of these proposals, and none of them have happened. And 31 days into the legislative session, it's important to realize we still do not have a proposal from the governor or the legislature. Now, let's look at what they've promised us. Starting in early 2017, Matt Bevin said that there would be a special session sometime in the year to create a bill for the pension crisis. Then on June 5th, he sent a letter that said there would be a late August session to deal with it. Then on October 18th, Bevin released his plan, and it was wildly controversial. You may remember we talked about it here on this show. It included cutting pensions and making teaching in Kentucky a profession that almost no one would want to do in the future. He said a session would come in the next few weeks, and after widespread anger and teachers rising up, nothing happened. Then we get to November, and Matt Bevin said there would be a proposal by year's end, and he said, I mean what I say. It will happen by year's end, the year that ended. On January 19th, Speaker of the House Osborne said there would be a bill released in a couple days. Still no bill. And then on February 13th of this week, Senate President James Stivers said by the end of this week, a bill will be released, and now there's still no bill. Now, why does this matter? In some ways, you could release a bill at any point, but not in Kentucky. In Kentucky, you can only have a session for 60 days, and it must end by April 15th. That means there's only 29 legislative days left in the session, and yet we have nothing for what may be a bill that affects the state as much as any in decades. Now, last week, Grover Norquist, you may not know the name, but he's a big anti-tax guy that all he does is get involved in government across the country. And 19 Kentucky millionaires released a letter saying that they wanted all public employees and teachers to go to 401ks. That was the Matt Bevin proposal. And that letter hit with a huge thud. Speaker of the House David Osborne blasted the letter and said he would not be bullied by Norquist or the millionaires. And he acknowledged something that was very important. You may remember back in October us talking about Bevin's proposal. And now 5 months later, the Republican Speaker and the Republican Senate President acknowledged what most said 5 months ago. Bevin's proposal not only does not save any money, it actually costs the state more money. That is an unbelievable admission, but one that is actually true. And it showcases that this entire pension crisis was manufactured and was basically ideological. And I question whether if a bill comes next week, there will be a manufactured time crunch to ensure that something passes that won't help teachers, won't help employees, and won't save the state any money. It's actually kind of frustrating because teachers have been thrown around for the last 5 months with people debating whether they deserve pensions, whether they should be changed, whether they get paid too much. And it turns out the proposal that was meant to change it did nothing but actually cost the state money. I really have grown tired watching these last 6 months because what's really needed in this state is revenue. What's interesting is the governor's latest budget actually funds the pension program completely. And we have to give him some credit for that. Governor Beshear did not do that in the 8 years before. But there are ways to raise money that would be simple and would help the state. I've said a couple of these before, but they're worth going over again. How about a cigarette tax? We tax cigarettes less than any state in the country, and cigarettes are the single most destructive force to health in the state. $1 a pack will raise plenty. How about a luxury services tax? We're one of the very few states in the country that doesn't tax golf club memberships, dry cleaning, landscape, or even janitorial services. Think about that. People who hire janitors, which is usually companies, they don't even have to pay taxes on it. That's ridiculous, and we're only one of a couple of states that do that. And how about casino gambling? I've said this before, but it bears repeating. It is ridiculous that we do not have casino gambling in this state. It would raise a ton of revenue, and today, Governor Matt Bevin said he would veto any bill that allowed for it. I think that's ridiculous. There is no moral reason to be against casino gambling, especially if you're a state that has a lottery and horse racing is a big part of our state's image. Gambling would raise money, and it has a vast majority of approval in the state. It's time for our state leaders to acknowledge what they should have 6 months ago. Matt Bevin's proposal did no good, would have cost more money, and only served as an attack on teachers. Now let's do something positive and quit the manufactured crisis against our public employees and our teachers.